let's get started. G'day guys, my name is CJ. I've been fortunate enough to have my hands on the 2018 iPhone XS Max, and I've been using it for around the last month or so now. So let's do this a little differently and address two of the biggest complaints about this phone. One, it's the same as the iPhone XS, and two, it's the insane price. Now with the first point, I'm not really sure what people expected with regards to the design and the ethos of the phone. Apple has always been in the business of releasing S versions of their phone every 2 years, and why anyone would think otherwise, I don't know. Every S version has been an iterative update with speed, under the hood improvements, a new shade of color, and has never been aimed at people who previously owned last year's model. And that's a good thing. The iPhone XS introduced a new phone design with all the tight finishes you'd expect from an Apple product. Notch aside, it was an exquisite phone in terms of design, and the same goes for the XS. The main difference this year is a positive size upgrade with the XS Max and the new gold color. I'm still overall not a fan of the notch, and I would prefer an entirely full screen phone, but I've gotten used to it, and I think most of the world has as well. And then there's the price. Yes, this phone is bloody expensive. Every year, Apple seems to continually push the boundaries of price, and it's the same against this year. And it's starting at 1,629 Australian dollars for the base model, and stretching up to an eye-watering $2,369 for the maximum 512GB max version. Now that's a much tougher proposition for a lot of people. The cost can be offset by a 24-month mobile contract, and that can be a little easier to digest, which I think most people will probably go down this route. For the others, however, those who don't have any particular allegiance to a platform, it's a much tougher decision because there's so many good and cheaper alternatives out there. But let's break down whether or not the iPhone XS is for you. Like the iPhone X, the XS and the XS Max houses a 6.8 and a 6.5 inch bright, color accurate, and a beautiful True Tone AMOLED display, a screen that anyone would be happy with. The Max model that I've been using has been a dream to use and look at. It's bright enough to use outdoors, and there's only the slightest hint of blue color shift at extreme angles that you can't really avoid with any OLED panel, Samsung phones included. The feel in the hand is also as you'd expect. There's a reassuring heft to the phone, the glass back and cold touch of the stainless steel band oozes class. But that's not really surprising. The Max model sits in the same footprint as the previous plus size models, so if you thought that was a little too big, chances are you're going to think the XS Max is even bigger, especially because there's more screen as well. I've always been a fan of the bigger phones, so I don't mind, and I love the extra screen real estate. Inside the XS Max, there's a large 3174 mAh battery compared to the 2658 mAh in the smaller iPhone XS. Means you get a little bit more juice from day to day, but the overall difference isn't actually as big as it used to be between the standard and the Plus models in older iPhones. It certainly doesn't come close to the jumbo capacities that we've seen with other Android monsters like the Note 9, the P20 Pro, Mate 20 Pro, and it certainly doesn't last as long. But to me, it's certainly no slouch either. It's certainly more efficient thanks to its A10 Bionic chip and RAM, and it comfortably lasts all day with heavy use, and the smaller XS model actually beats the iPhone X, even though the iPhone X had a bigger 2716 mAh battery. As I said before, this is thanks to this year's new internals. It's also thanks to this optimization that we get stellar performance all around with the navigation and using the phone. iOS 12 itself was a major under-the-hood tune-up, and actually gave people's older iPhone 5Ss a new lease of life. What other manufacturer gives you this amount of support for devices this old? In any case, the XS paired with iOS 12 absolutely screams. The experience is snappy, smooth, and simply satisfying, using a phone that just seems to flow. Admittedly, the gestures are a little trickier with the Max model, now needing even more intense thumb hyperextension, even with the more refined reachability feature. You're going to be using this two-handed for sure. One thing I would have liked to have seen from Apple was to give us the same split screen functionality that we already see in iPads. There's so much more screen now, and it's being wasted. Even the icon arrangement on the home screen is the same as the small model. You can't fit any extra icons horizontally or vertically. And the same quirks that existed on the iPhone X, they're still here as well. No headphone jack, expensive, fingerprint plastered glass on the back, slippery as hell, and an added quirk that is very un-Apple-like considering their fetish for symmetry, and that's the radio band down on the bottom of the phone. Also, if not including a fast charger in the box wasn't a hard slap in the face already, the fact that Apple decided to admit the lightning to headphone dongle is just a blatant man getting hit by a football moment. The other thing that was mentioned was a quicker Face ID. Honestly, it may have been a split second faster, but it certainly still isn't instantaneous. It still kind of feels like Gen 1 hardware for now, and I would expect next year's iteration to be a much bigger change. Then finally, the biggest upgrade in my opinion is the camera. It still houses a similar looking dual lens system with a standard wide angle and a telephoto lens. Even the aperture is the same at f1.8 and 2.4, both optically stabilized. And I'll say it up front now, the camera in the XS is magnitudes better than the one in the X. If there is one real tangible improvement, that's the camera. And the way Apple has achieved this is with a change in its image processing. By adopting a similar method to HDR capture as the Pixel phones, taking photos are snappy and high in dynamic range as it constantly keeps a buffer of photos the moment you turn on the camera. It's constantly taking photos of varied exposure, and the moment you hit the shutter button, it combines a bunch together using AI and computational photography to bring out more details in the shadows and reduce the highlights. So in the end, you come up with photos that are rich in dynamic range, natural in color, and very pleasing to the eye. But in some cases, maybe a little too pleasing. We've all heard of Beautygate, and it definitely showed itself with my use with the 12.0 firmware. And as we know, it's primarily a result of noise reduction and the image processing algorithm that Apple uses, and not a specific beauty mode setting. I think this has been addressed in an iOS 12.1 update, but personally I'm not a fan, but I can actually see the appeal, especially in the Asian markets. That's why I would have been hopeful that they maybe just made it a feature instead that you can turn on and off. And now finally, video recording on iPhones has always been one of the best in the business, and the XS cements itself again as one of the best. It has new microphones so it can capture rich stereo sound, which is great for vloggers and casual YouTubers, and then dynamic range is on point. Exposure is pretty good, the picture itself is actually really impressive as well. It remains stabilized at 4K 60 frames per second, which some modern phones still don't, which is a big plus. I'm looking at you, Google Pixel 3. Otherwise, there's not really much else to say about the phone. You know what you're buying with modern iPhones. It's a well-built, premium phone with an excellent camera and software experience. It's all part of the massive iOS ecosystem, all of which you pay a price for. So if you own an older iPhone, a MacBook, an Apple Watch, and other Apple items, and your whole family uses iPhone, then the iPhone XS is a great option. If not, and you either own an iPhone X already, or you're thinking maybe you're gonna go with an Android phone and you don't wanna spend so much, then don't buy this phone. Save your money and reward yourself, or buy something nice for your special someone, or something. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you felt I've been balanced with this review, but I'm curious to know, are you gonna hate because you love Android and I said nice things about the phone? Or are you gonna hate because you love Apple and I told people not to buy the phone? Do let the hate flow in the comments section below, because I'm gonna go MJ on this and grab some popcorn. Just joking, please be civil down there. I'll see you in the next video. Say good day to your mum for me. Cheers.